So what just happened? A major change just rocked the foundation of NIL policy. The College Sports Commission, CSC, the newly formed enforcement arm run by power conferences, just released a revised memo saying this: yes, NIL collectives can now pay athletes directly, but only if certain rules are followed. We need limitations. We do. We just need it. It reverses a July 10 memo that originally rejected collectives as valid businesses. While the change, after the heavy backlash and week-long negotiations with attorneys behind the House versus NCAA case, the CSC issued new guidance. And then we have these like 3 golden rules. And I like these 3 golden rules, aka valid, business purposes benchmarks. Deliver a good or service to the general public. So you can't be hiding behind a wall. You have to deliver a good or service to the general public. Operate for profit, my apologies, not just as a pass-through to athletes. Because I think what a lot of people believed, what I believe, is that these schools were kind of hiding behind some of these NIL collectives and were paying the athletes directly, which we no longer have an issue with. It just needs to be known. Because, you'll hear the jealousy. Ohio State spent $40 million on that roster. And then Ron Day will say, whoa, not so fast. Wait one goddamn minute. We only spent like 23 million or 30 million. I forgot. No, he said 22 million on this roster. That's what he said last year. And a lot of people felt like, Texas Tech spent a lot of money on their roster. But we kind of didn't know what it was. So operate for profit. I already talked about that. Not just a pass through the athletes, and pay within fair market value. These operative words were like ding, 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 ding. Okay, now we're talking shop. Now we're talking business. Pay within fair market value. And so a few thoughts popped into my mind. Well, how will we determine fair market value? I think a cap is coming. I'll get into my takes a little bit later on in this segment, but I'm just letting you know what my thought process is. Pay within a fair market value. Who's going to establish this fair market value, right? It'll be determined and tracked through NIL Go submission system. NIL Go is going to be truly, truly impressive. It really is. The fact that you'll be able to see all of this, see who are the legitimate companies are, what they're paying said athlete, I think this is going to be impressive. This is no longer about who's paying. It's about what the deal actually is. The CSC now reviews the transaction, not just the entity behind it. Every deal will be judged case by case with special attention to profit, public service, and market rate, aka market value. This is impressive. Stay with me. I'm just trying to break this down. Real world impact. So what types of deals are now allowed? Think merch sales, autograph sessions, golf tournament appearance, speaking engagements, any legitimate event or campaign that generates value to the public. But let's be clear, pay for play is still banned. And what did I just say earlier? I believe that a lot of these universities were still paying these players secretly behind these third-party NIL collectives, and it was really, you couldn't really do much work with it, right? If we're being honest. But still, the impact is huge. Denied deals from earlier this month are now being reevaluated using the new rules. So let's go back over the golden rules. Deliver a good service to the general public. Operate for profit, not just as a pass-through to athletes. They have to actually be in business for profit. That's impressive. But pay within fair market value, and how that market value will be determined is by NIL Go. So I think in the long run, we're not there yet, I think this will help a little bit with the tampering that we see, with the poaching that we see. I really do. I just think they need to do a loyalty bonus. I covered this, I think it was like episode 30 something, maybe 20 something, that we need an NIL loyalty bonus. I truly believe that. Still, the impact is huge. Denied deals from earlier this month are still being reevaluated using the new rules. I just said that. So enforcing the rules, athletes must report any third-party NIL deal worth $600 plus to the NIL Go clearinghouse. One of my fears is that some of these players who don't follow some of these rules may be subject to suspension. But who's going to suspend them? I don't know. It flagged the CSC, led by ex-MOB executive Brian Seeley, can demand proof of legitimacy. Impressive. If the athlete or business refuses or provides insufficient documentation, the deal gets denied. Right now, hundreds of deals are under review with more than 1,500 already approved. So if you're doing everything you're supposed to do, you following those three golden rules, you're good. Commissioner and legal reaction. SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey called this a necessary step for national fairness and structure. Ole Miss head coach Lane Kiffin kind of threw shade, saying some schools still think the enforcement won't stick. But Big Ten Commissioner, these are some of the things that have been said about other people. Tony Petitti warned that this is only the beginning. Expect more changes and more negotiations with attorneys. Attorney Tom Mars, who represents NIL collectives, applauded the update but slammed the delay, which is crazy. So I'm just kind of giving you the background. Now we're going to get to kind of, what I think and how I feel about it. We move past the ideology of amateurism. Remember, that's what the NCAA wanted for so long. That ideology of amateurism, that these players are students first, then athletes, and that's why we always hear student athletes, because they wanted the respect to amateurism. We will still use the label student athlete, but let's not pretend the same thing it used to be. A top 10 basketball recruit may be on campus for 6 or 7 months, bro. Maybe 8 at the most before heading to the NBA. How much is he paying attention in class? Like, let's be real. Like, he's probably taking the easiest courses he can take. He has no plans on getting his degree probably until later on. It just is what it is. That they're not going to be on campus, that long. In football, many of these players are handling more interviews, sponsorships, and contract conversations. Let's be real. Once the money enters the equation, real money, we're talking about professional athletes who just happen to be enrolled in a college taking a course, right? And that's fine, but that means we need accountability, just like the NFL, NBA, MLB, soccer. You can Google a player's contract. I remember when I was doing Leverett analytics, one of my favorite things to do, this is when we were with Real Ones Productions and we weren't just doing college football. Then I realized all I really care about covering is college football. But we was doing NFL and stuff like that. And I was trying to figure out a way because, talking NFL is so saturated, so oversaturated because there's so many people talking NFL. I wanted to find a way to kind of be creative in my covering of the NFL. So I would look at contracts. I would study them. I really would. Look at teams with a bunch of, dead salary cap of players who moved on, bad deals that were happening. And I had this show called Leverett Analytics, and that's kind of what I would cover. I would cover, that type of stuff. But I said that to say this, like there's a site I think it's Sports Track. I can't think of the name of the site, but you can see everybody's money. You can see what they're making this year, what's their bonus this year, what's going to be that balloon payment at the end that we see at a lot of contracts. We will see this, time and time again. So just like the NFL, MLB, NBA, you can see players' contracts. Well, we need that same accountability with college as it pertains to the NIL and revenue sharing. We need that very same accountability. We need to be able to see those contracts. If the public and opposing schools can see what deals are on the table, it eliminates the whispers and the backdoor rumors. Like we were just talking about when people said, Ohio State and Texas spent like $40 million on their roster construction, According to Ryan Day, it wasn't true. I don't believe it's true. I don't think they spent that type of money, but I think that's why we do need something like NIL Go so that there's some legitimacy. Now, are they truly going to enforce the rules? I think that's another topic. That's another Pandora's box that we won't kind of address right here, but it's certainly something to deal with. So I like it. So this is kind of where I'm at. So this change will put pressure on collectives to be honest, kill the false narrative game, help enforce fair market value and real standards, make it harder to run pay-for-play disguised as NIL. And there was a lot of that going on. If you don't think it's going on, what they say, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. Or my dad would say, if you ain't cheating, you ain't competing. I don't know. If you're a college football fan who already wants fair play, clear rules, and a competitive sport, this is exactly the kind of transparency the game needed. And let me tell you where I think it's headed. Eventually, we'll have a salary cap at the FBS level. I truly believe it. I don't know how it works. I don't know what it looks like. I think that cap will probably be different at the Group of 5 level. I think soon to be G6 level. I'm not sure what it looks like, to be honest with you, but I think at some point we're heading this way, because if we're trying to determine fair market value, we're able to see these contracts on NIL Go. what establishes, too high of a paycheck if we're trying to get to a fair market value, right? So I think we're headed towards the salary cap direction. That structure, if done right, won't just save college football. It'll make it better as it pertains to the semantics of the sport. There's nothing wrong with this game in the fall. This game is as pure as it's ever been. There's no other sport I'd rather watch. It isn't. When we have these discussions, about on governor's ruling and how we can improve the sport, I'm purely just addressing semantics. I'm not addressing anything else. It's just, how can this sport be better, in the off season? Because, it's the off season, of course. Welcome back everybody who was, kind of catching up on college football, which you missed the last 7 months. It's documented. Go follow at the CFB Nation on Twitter. Go follow at the CFB Nation on YouTube. Follow at Governor of College Football on YouTube, and you can find out what you've been missing, these past 7 months. But welcome back, and everybody who's been here, those 1% who's been here the entire time, thank you. Alrighty, so here's my final verdict. This is a massive W for collegiate sports, especially college football. Fair play, transparency, guardrails. The money's already in the building. Now it's time to manage it like grown-ups, and I like it. We can see it at the NFL level. We kind of knew pay for play. Let's just be honest. Can I talk to y'all? Can I be real with y'all? Pay for play been happening way before we all were talking about NIL, right? We do know that there's been rumored that there was a number, because some of these per diems, these schools were giving these athletes and saying that's enough money to live, and you wonder why some of those athletes were doing other things to make money. It is what it is, but I believe certain players did get paid or did get compensation. Like the movie, was it Blue Chips? Those ideologies didn't just come from anywhere, right?